folks, welcome back to the Petra Pan Apparel YouTube channel, and today I have for you a little book review resource guide for some of the most valuable resources I have found out there for learning about fashion history. Also, I have to apologize for this excuse for mid-century curls. I had this experience last night of my headscarf falling off. I had a beautiful set of curls yesterday when I took my curlers out, and then tucked them all away last night while I was sleeping, and scarf came off during the night and they all got smooshed, and it is a gazillion% humidity outside, so I didn't even try to set them back today. So that's where we're at right now, what we're dealing with. So moving on. This is an area of study that is still quite difficult to kind of study on your own. It's kind of hard to find resources. It can be hard to get your hands a hold of some things. So I've been having to use my local library and various online resources to kind of look at my areas of interest. So my areas of interest are predominantly 1930s and 40s fashion. I'm very interested in the rise of American fashion, the American look. I'm very interested in World War II fashion, what was going on in the States at that time. I'm also generally aesthetically interested in the 1930s. It is just what I love to look at, what I love to try to wear. So I'm just going to go through a list of things that I have found the most helpful and most useful in my studies. First up is an online resource which I have been accessing through my local library, the Queensland State Library of Queensland in Australia. It might be something you can access through your local library, is the Vogue online archive. So on that archive, it goes back all the way to, I think, 1890s. And it is a really high quality online database. So you can actually search through all the issues of Vogue from now to 1890. You can put in keywords like, if you want to look up, for example, when we start to see women's trousers mentioned in fashion publications, you can search trousers, and then you can click to sort by date, and then you can look from oldest to newest. So that's a resource I've been using a lot. I've used that a lot to look up things like, I'm also interested in the influence of dance on fashion and ballet on fashion, so I do things like search ballet and see what comes up in that catalog. I've also just gone through and browsed basically every issue from, I think I've read every issue from 1939 to 1942 now is what I'm up to. So what's great about the resource I'm using, it's through ProQuest, I think is the name, and you can actually download pages. So I can download them, print them, and just keep them for reference. That is a fantastic resource. Highly recommend that. There are some amazing articles. It's great to read the articles. The advertisements are always amazing to look at, but of course that's a high fashion publication, so you might not necessarily be seeing what everyday fashion is like. So moving on from there to another resource where you might be seeing more everyday fashion are these two books, and everything will be linked in the description box that I can find, are these everyday fashions books. So if you are interested in fashion and you have looked up any kind of fashion books on Amazon, you've probably seen these. So these are basically Sears, like clippings from Sears catalogs. This one is, I've got one for the 30s and one for the 40s, and this is an amazing resource because obviously the Sears catalog, it was more of a mass manufactured place to shop, and so a lot of the fashions you see in these magazines are more of your everyday kind of streetwear, everyday kind of fashion that you'd be seeing. So I absolutely love these, and they go chronologically through the decade, so starting off at the beginning of the decade, and yeah, they're just really, really great resources. I would love to get my hands on some actual Sears catalogs from the 30s and 40s. So If anybody knows where I can get some of those and not have to spend a fortune to ship them to Australia, let me know. So, in no particular order, the next resource is, let's go with this one next. So this is something I found from listening to the Dressed podcast. So they were actually talking about this exhibition, which was the women who revolutionized fashion, going back through 250 years of design. I believe this exhibition was at the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem, Massachusetts. Yeah, so it's a collaboration with another museum that I'm not going to try and pronounce. I will put it on the screen for you. So this was, I can't find the date. I'll also put the date of this up, of this exhibition. But it basically has some really amazing essays that were written on a few different topics by a few different academics in the field. And then what's great about this is it has profiles of women designers who in some way or another revolutionized the fashion world. So Elizabeth Keckley, someone you may have never heard of, an incredible African-American designer who designed for the First Lady, Mary Todd Lincoln. And yeah, so it has profiles of all different designers from well-known to obscure, Chanel, names that have just, become lost to us today. So this is an amazing resource. I use this as a really good kind of jumping off point. So just going through and looking at the names and then going online and doing some more research from there. So the next one, in kind of the vein of more academic reading, is this book, The American Look by Rebecca Arnold. It is, now you can obviously tell this copy I have looks well loved because it is. I've been carrying this around with me for a couple of months, and it's taken me a couple of months to get through this book. There is so much information in this book that, and it's written incredibly well, but it's very academic. And sometimes for me it is hard to get my head around it, so I have to reread sections a few times, but it's just the most amazing resource. So this is specifically for fashion, sportswear, and the image of women in the 1930s and 1940s New York. So it's obviously very specific to my area of interest, and this is kind of where my area of interest has arisen from. So I highly recommend this book if you are academically minded, if you are very serious about learning about 20th century fashion. The chapters, she covers a lot about things like the fashion group, which was set up in the 30s, and some of the first female designers and professionals in the industry. So highly recommend this book. And again, I've gone through, as I've read it, I've highlighted particular information. So I've been highlighting interesting points and information in yellow, and you might be able to see I've been highlighting names in orange because she mentions so many different designers and players in the fashion industry at that time. I highlight the names in orange so that I can go back through and find the names and then look them up separately, because there are so many people mentioned in this book, and sometimes they're mentioned just one-off, and so I use that to then continue to research those people. So yes, this book is more topical than chronological, so yes, highly recommend. And in a related way to that one, so this is also a book from an exhibition of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So this is the American Ingenuity Sportswear in the 1930s to the 1970s, and this goes along really well with the this book, because a lot of this book doesn't have a lot of images. The images are all kind of on one page together, and they're a little bit small, so some of the garments mentioned are not pictured. So this book actually contains a lot of the same garments that are mentioned in that other book. So I love this book because the topics that it covers are incredibly fascinating. So things like latching. So it talks about, you know, how closures have changed in sportswear and why they were significant. And it talks about pockets. There's a whole section on pockets. What else is in here? Wrapping and tying, latching, stowing, harmonizing, adapting, and then some profiles of designers in this one as well. So highly recommend this book. It just has beautiful images, really high quality images, and yeah, fabulous resource. Again, this one is more topical than chronological, but spans you know, quite a range of time, from 30s to 70s. So recommend this one. And the last book on my recommendation is my all-time favorite fashion book that I have ever read. It is super easy to read, it is enjoyable, it is so full of images. It is this, Forties Fashion, From Siren Suits to the New Look by Jonathan Walford. And he actually has a blog as well that I will link, and has really interesting articles in that blog. So you can see, this is a pretty good sized book. This is the newer edition that I've purchased. I actually got this book from the library and then purchased it because it was so good. So yeah, let me see if I can find some good examples. So yeah, tons of beautiful images like this, but he goes into so much detail. My favorite part about this book is his discussion of clothing rationing during World War II. So this book is mainly focused on World War II. And he even gives specific things that were rationed. So like, for example, you had to, obviously in Britain, when clothing was rationed, you had to present these stamps in order to buy something. So you had to pay for it and present the stamp because you couldn't get more than a certain amount, and you were only given a certain number of stamps. So, for example, for a woman, it was 11 stamps to buy a wool dress, but only 6 stamps to buy a night dress. So just giving all of that, you know, information. He gives all the requirements for the clothing that was made at the time. Shares lots of things like posters and labels from that World War II period, and yeah, just shares lots of different publications and various like magazine things like that. So this one is chronological, so it goes from beginning of the 40s, at the beginning of World War II. It even covers a little bit of what was going on in fashion in other countries. So it talks a bit about Japan, and Australia even is mentioned in here. So yeah, this book is an absolute gem. If you are interested in any way in 40s fashion, I recommend this book over, I'd say, get this one first. It is so good. I hope you enjoyed our little collection of resources today. I am constantly buying more books. I have a problem now collecting books, so I'd like to do another updated version of this after I read through the collection of books I have at the moment. So I hope you found this useful. Again, I'll include any links that I can find in the description. I have a feeling a lot of these books will be much easier to get if you're in the US. In Australia, a lot of them were very difficult to come by, or the shipping was really expensive, or things like that. So happy learning! If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and if you like this kind of informative content, give me a like. Let me know what aspects of fashion are you interested in learning about, and if I've got any resources to share, I will share them with you. So again, thanks a lot, and